The future is, if organizations want to be successful with hiring and retaining, a diverse team, and again, retaining them, have to really triple down on, creating not only from, you mentioned this earlier, but not only from the candidate experience, but from the employee experience. Psychological safety, a place where people truly feel like they belong and can grow, and have opportunities to grow. It goes back to the basics at every step of the way, auditing your, candidate life cycle, the full employee life cycle, and making sure that the human part, is front and center.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Recruiting Revolution. Our guest today is Rachel Cupples from Seattle, United States, who is the senior recruiter at Textio. At Textio, the mission is to assist organizations in building and maintaining diverse, high-performing teams. Rachel brings in 8 years of extensive experience in talent acquisition, spanning across agencies, corporate, and non-profit sectors as well. She's not only an award-winning recruiter, but also a seasoned hiring manager trainer, and is also known for her captivating blog, which you can find out on Recruiting Inc. Welcome, Rachel, and thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So, Rachel, before we dive into the specific recruitment part of the things, tell us about your amazing journey in the field of talent acquisition.
Oh goodness! So I've actually been in recruiting for just a little over 10 years now, and I started out in staffing, which I think a lot of in-house recruiters like myself started out that way. But I've had the incredible opportunity to work in staffing, work for RPOs, and staff for a variety of different industries and skill sets, but also work in nonprofit. And now I've spent the last 2.5, almost 3 years in tech. So I'm obsessed with candidate experience. So I found my calling 10 years ago.
That's amazing. Would love to know more on the inspiration of the Wonder Woman theme of your blog, Recooty Inc, and also the topics that you cover in that blog.
Yeah, I since I was a little girl, like since the 80s, probably 1984, I remember watching Wonder Woman on television, and wanting to be her, taking tinfoil from my grandmother's kitchen and turning it into like the cuffs and the wristbands and making myself, the Wonder Woman tiara. But ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be Wonder Woman. And when I was thinking about a personal brand for myself, I thought, what could be better than I'm not Wonder Woman. I don't want to be Wonder Woman anymore. I want to be, Rachel Cupples, recruiting Shiro. So I am very passionate about candidate experience. But as someone who is neurodiverse myself, I have had experiences as an employee and job searching, interviewing that haven't been as positive, as they should have been. And so I try to be the recruiter that I would want and that I would want to show up for me with everyone.
That is amazing. Considering your experience in talent acquisition, you must have, come across people, who frequently lump HR and talent acquisition together, even though they have like distinctive roles, like the peas in a pot. You still find yourself contemplating the question, like the same question?
This is one of those sort of questions that I think will always be asked, because depending on the size of your organization and the structure, sometimes HR has recruiting responsibilities, and sometimes recruiting has pieces of HR responsibilities. But when we think of HR as a whole, I like to think of it as HR is the umbrella that falls over Everything from recruiting to DEI to um, employee relations, benefits, compensation analysis. It goes on and on. So I look at it and when I'm, am talking to someone that doesn't understand, I explain there are specific functions that people can become subject matter experts in. But I am not, a subject matter expert in benefits or even compensation analysis. Something I'm interested in. I'm learning more about, but I really like recruiting. And so I think where I'm talking in circles, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, the confusion I think stems from, depending on the size of the company and how the company structures and the reporting structure, it's never the same. At Textio, where I work currently, we have people operations, which is, the traditional, when we think of HR, and then we have talent acquisition and DEI in another department. But our teams work very closely together and often have, cross-functional responsibilities.
Yeah, that answers the question. When it comes to talent acquisition, there's a lot of tools involved. With a wide range of tools and software available for hiring, like in today's time. Like, how do you determine the most suitable one for your needs? And do you have some favorites?
Yeah, I am biased, that is for sure. But I mean, Textio, we still, Textio Loop is a software created to create, unbiased and inclusive job posts, right? So there's tools like Textio out there. I do prefer Textio. I use it every day, whether it's for employment branding emails and outreach, for my LinkedIn posts, or for new job posts. I also really love a product called Seek Out. And it is a tool where I can source a variety of different types of candidates, all in one place through LinkedIn, GitHub, and various areas of social media. I also really love Greenhouse, the applicant tracking system, and we currently do use Greenhouse at Textio. The first time I implemented it, I wasn't sure if I was sold on it. But this is the second partial implementation I was part of, and I really love just all of its capabilities and how user-friendly it is for me as a recruiter to be able to be responsive and stay organized so that I don't ghost, like, unintentionally, any candidates.
That is so true. And you've been in the industry for so long. So have you seen any difference in the tools back in those days and now? Like, is there a wide range of difference?
Yes. It's two sides of it. When I first started out 10 years ago in staffing, I was a branch manager of a small staffing agency. It was like a DOS-based system that we used to, keep track of our candidates and whatnot. And I think we might have used ZipRecruiter at the time. But I was so new. I didn't know about all the, other tools that were out there. So over time, yes, new tools have evolved, but there's some really great tools out there that have been out there a very long time that I do continue to discover, even recently. So, like, I really love the tool Prelude. It's a scheduling tool, but it helps. It really helps with scheduling complex calendars, especially when you're scheduling loop panels that have, several individuals involved in, 4 or 5 different time zones. So I think we'll see more and more products out there, even like Textio. The thing that excites me just as much as new products is the continual iteration and enhancements and advancements and, current products that are on the market, and how HR tech is evolving to create a more, unbiased, inclusive experience for job seekers.
Yeah, that is so true. You talked about your obsession with candidate experience.
Mhm.
In the times of like this is a time of like a very hard time of layoffs, especially for those who have gone through the entire hiring process, received the job offer letter, and were then told not to join due to the layoffs. They weren't even had the not having their very first day. Do you think like these candidates would have had a negative impact as like the candidate experience journey?
That's a complex and excellent question. And I believe that every organization should examine it when they're thinking of, when we think of candidate experience initially, like from the very, before we even start recruiting or start thinking about, posting a job, we have to think about things like that because while I'd love to say that every organization can anticipate and knows what's happening in the market, things happen, right? We in 2020, no one guessed when they were putting their, strategic plans together for 2020 back at, in Q4 of 2021 or 2019, that we'd have a global pandemic and that we'd have layoffs and all of these sort of, uncharted experiences. So the simple answer is yes, it does impact it. However, I think genuinely and generally, job seekers have taken it upon themselves because of all the misinformation that's on the internet, telling them to do this and then telling them to do the opposite of this, to really do their best to educate themselves and take more ownership and control of their own experience as a job seeker. So when an organization has candidate experience on lock, or that they really have candidate experience working for them, even in those scenarios, it's always a negative feeling to lose a job or to be laid off. But oftentimes companies hire and they don't know that's going to happen. A layoff. I've seen it. I've heard from some of my recruiting friends. Luckily, I haven't had to experience this, where they had to resend offers before people even started, or have had people start and within the first 6 months have had to, lay folks off. That happens a lot in a job market like today. So it's my hope that, employers will take more time and think about candidate experience and how it ties into, the entire brand of the organization and overall, employment brand. An employer's employment, value proposition is so important, and any dings to the brand or missteps in today's age with the internet and everything's at our fingertips, to leave reviews or, comments on social media, it's important that, employers really focus on providing the best candidate experience possible. And communication is key, right? I can't do a lot to control as a recruiter, everything, but what I can control as a recruiter is the relationship that I have with my candidates that are in the interview process and the communication. And I approach it personally. I try to, approach it with dignity and respect for those that I'm speaking to, but just authentically and honestly.
Yeah, that is so true. Do you think that, in this time of layoffs, like engaging with top talent still remains a significant challenge for organizations, even though, people are in the market who've been laid off, unfortunately?
Yes, and yes and no, I would say. I think it really it goes back to your sourcing strategy, right? And really going back to your employment brand, and have you worked on really creating, a positive, employer value proposition where folks, do they recognize your name or have they heard something, positive about what it's like to be an employee at your company? Or is it the opposite? So I will say what has changed today versus maybe 12 to 18 months ago, as a recruiter that sources as well, job seekers and even passive folks that are working that I reach out to, they seem to be more responsive. However, what I'm seeing is, and again, this goes with job seekers educating themselves more and wanting to do more research. It's taking longer to get them to be interested, to actually talk about the role. So I feel like I live in a special place working at Textio because people are genuinely curious about the advancements in generative AI and our products for, removing bias from language for job posts and for performance management, like job reviews. So they want to talk about that. So that for me is that's how I start there. And if I can, if I have an opening that meets their experience, we go from there.
Understood. Also, do you think that candidate experience and employee experience goes hand in hand?
Absolutely. And where it can really go wrong is if during the candidate experience, a recruiter or, a hiring manager or just the employer in general misleads the candidates for what is it truly like to work here. People generally want to know what it's truly like to work somewhere. And I think oftentimes employers or recruiters who make embellishments or, sort of sugarcoat or shine, some rose-colored glasses on an organization versus just keeping it real, are doing themselves a real disservice because I don't know about you, but more than once in my career, I've taken a role and in my first week or my first 30 days realized, oh, this isn't what they portrayed the culture was like, or this isn't the job that I interviewed for, or, so it is imperative for retaining employees to be honest through the entire experience so that once they become employees, they know what to expect.
From your perspective, do you think that a candidate should rely on Glassdoor or,
Glassdoor. I apologize. So here's the thing, Glassdoor or not, feedback is a gift, right? Oftentimes it's human nature to leave a review when you're at your happiest, maybe when you've gone through an interview process and you've gotten an offer or you're rejected or you're feeling low or down or you're having a negative experience. So there's always, employees, candidates, job seekers, we're all human. We're all having a human experience, and it's not just our minds, it's our hearts and emotions that get involved as well. So to answer your question, I do think it's a benefit. Sometimes you have to weed through some of the emotion and, to get to the heart of the feedback. But, one thing I appreciate about Glassdoor for Textio right now, it's something I'm working on, trying to, constantly iterate and innovate our candidate experience and provide the best, experiences possible. But even when we get a review where someone wasn't satisfied, or an employee that isn't satisfied, or an alumni, someone that's left that isn't satisfied, we respond to, current and past employee reviews. And not because we want to look good, but we truly want to understand. And so that's why I think if employers look at tools like Glassdoor, Indeed, or there's so many other apps out there too now where folks are, reviewing organizations, even in the comment sections on social media and places. If we take the emotion out of it and look at it, like it's such a gift, like, because there's always something that can lead to for an opportunity for either further innovation or opportunity to change direction, in a more positive way to support, current and future employees.
Yeah, got that. Do you have any tips, to improve candidate experience?
This isn't a hot take or new, I feel like this is like how just a basic, I suppose, of candidate experience. But when we look at candidate experience, or when we think about, we want to, audit our candidate experience, or we're a new company, or we're building new processes, we often forget to remember this is a human experience, and the candidate is on the other side and has absolutely no idea what is going on the other side of either a career site or what they see on the internet, or they've heard word of mouth, and their application process. So it is imperative to create systems and processes, whether you use automation as a tool to support you, not to do the work, or not. I'm a big believer in using tools, but not to the point where it like dehumanizes job seekers, because at the end of the day, most organizations, I say this a lot, aren't hiring for a professional resume writer or someone who is the world's utmost subject matter expert in being an interviewee. Like, we're all people. And so it just, again, it goes back, going back to the basics. At every step of the way, auditing your, candidate life cycle, the full employee life cycle, and making sure that the human part, is front and center.
Yeah.
I just read a blog about this. So.
Got it. Like, there is like one notion of recruiters that, they don't reply, or give feedback on LinkedIn. There are tons of messages of the candidates, asking for feedback. And you think that like, we as recruiters have like that responsibility to give the feedback on like what is your perspective on giving feedback to tons of candidates, which is kind of, as a human, it's not really possible. Yeah.
So I have a lot of big opinions on this, but it's not as simple as just yes or no. Some organizations, some employers don't allow their recruiting teams to give feedback for whatever reason. I guess, my hot take on that is if an employer has a recruiting team or hiring team that is, interviewing folks, and you are providing an inclusive and unbiased experience and interview process, there should be no reason why you can't provide a high level amount of feedback for job seekers. However, the other thing to keep in mind is, for job seekers, I am like, in my situation, I am the recruiter at Textio. It's me. And so I am one person, and I have hundreds, oftentimes thousands, of applicants that come in. So I am able to give feedback quite often. However, if someone is hitting me up on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, or, the many places that I, am asked, will you look at this resume and tell me if I'm qualified type stuff, I do my best to get back to folks. However, my focus has to really be on the candidates and job seekers that we're already basically in play, or that I already have been through the interview process or at some stage of it. And then the rest of the folks I get back to when I can. Recruiters often, we talk about this a lot within our own little community, are, criticized quite often by job seekers for not responding. And it's no wonder that job seekers, feel that way, especially after organizations are ghosting folks and everything else. So it goes all the way back to the beginning, back to the basics. If an employer does not have, their candidate experience focused processes and human-centered processes for hiring, down the road, when job seekers want feedback, they're going to, be more resistant to even accepting that feedback. But I can tell you that I I get asked for feedback a lot, post interview, and I give it to absolutely everyone that I can reach. It doesn't always happen though in the time I think that all, job seekers would like, but I'm one person. So I don't know if that answered your question. I think that it's okay to ask for feedback. However, just keep in mind, if you're a job seeker, that it's not always the recruiter that doesn't want to give it to you. Sometimes it's a policy, unfortunately.
Got it. Understood. In this time, like there are a lot of people who are interested in talent acquisition, especially. There are a lot of candidates, applying for the role. Do you have any advice for individuals in the early stages of their, talent acquisition career?
My advice is to talk to other recruiters. Talk to people that are in the field. Oftentimes, the amount of work, the strategy, the organization, and just the pure amount of people hours that go into recruiting is underestimated. Sometimes even within leadership within, a company where, they underestimate how hard it is to recruit, for their own team. So I would just keep in mind that it takes time. No one is an expert after 2 years. I've been doing this now for a decade. As of January, just of this year, in no way do I consider myself an expert in every part of the process. I've been told that I am, and with candidate experience, but I don't think it's truly possible, because if we are truly evolving and being innovative, and we are moving forward, just with innovation and tech, and just as we evolve and understand more of humans, there's always new ways to support one another and show up in a positive way.
Then advice is to just go for it.
Go for it. Yeah, I mean, right now I'll say, like, there's I know a lot of unemployed recruiters. However, I've seen advice from, people in HR and other recruiters on LinkedIn, and, saying this isn't the field to get into, but it's my opinion, and this definitely comes with, I want to acknowledge a place of privilege, right? Everyone has to eat, but it's my opinion that if you can chase after what brings you joy and work that is fun and interesting to you, that you absolutely should.
That is amazing. As my last question, gazing into the recruiting crystal ball, what adventure do you think future of recruiting holds for us?
I know what the short-term future is for me as a recruiter in my organization, but I think as a whole, for recruiting, whether it's staffing or in-house or any type of recruitment type work, the future is, it's always going back to the basics first, making sure that, again, we're being people-centered, human-centered. But with that, the future is in something that hasn't been done well across hiring, across, just all business sectors, is making sure that we're creating inclusive, equitable, and unbiased processes, and that we're building that and sewing that into to our interview and evaluation processes. Because, as I said, job seekers are becoming more and more, educated, which, I applaud them for that, but there is still some misinformation out there. So I encourage folks to, if you don't know if something is right or wrong, reach out to a recruiter you trust, whether they're recruiting for that field or that role or not. Recruiters have lots of opinions, and we're happy to tell you, to share. But at the end of the day, the future is, if organizations want to be successful with hiring and retaining, a diverse team, and again, retaining them, have to really triple down on, creating, not only from, you mentioned this earlier, but not only from the candidate experience, but from the employee experience, psychological safety, a place where people truly feel like they belong and can grow, and have opportunities to grow. Otherwise, if we don't focus on that as employers, we're going to miss the mark because other employers have figured it out. The mind of a job seeker changed drastically in 2020 as we all had time across the entire globe to sit at home and think about our priorities and what we want out of our lives, personally and professionally. So if employers do not evolve, at least from that standpoint, I think we're going to see, again, another resurgence as companies start hiring more of people leaving organizations that do not value them.
Yeah, so I think future of recruiting is like.
I do. I believe so. I think right now, I'm my heart aches for so many of the recruiters just within my own small community of recruiting friends across the globe that are unemployed and just talented folks. But this is going to turn around, and employers that want to be successful are going to invest in either in hiring a recruiting partner through an agency or RPO or staffing firm, or hiring internally and building their own employment brand and their own inclusive processes.
That is the truth. Rachel, that concludes my side. Thank you so much for taking the time out and to join us today on the podcast. It was great having you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.